Hello, fellow followers. Welcome back to FanZcene. Greg here, and today I have for you: Are we witnessing the death of movies? Now, this is a topic that I want to dive into because I've been hearing a lot of things about movies, about what is killing movies, and by extension, the movie theaters. Is it because they're sending movies directly to digital after weeks of being in the theaters? Is it because of streaming? Is it because of ballooning budgets? Is it because of the movies that are being made are bad movies? Is it because there's so many things? And I would have to say yes. It's yes to pretty much all of these things. People keep saying movies are dead. They've moved on. I've heard people saying movies that that the masses have moved on because that they prefer TikTok, they prefer YouTube, they prefer social media. It's the masses have moved on from movies, so the movies are dead. The thing with that is that I think that's in a slight way that's true, because I've heard people say that. I think it's because those are mentioned are providing them with entertainment. Movies today, you got to understand that movies today are not providing the entertainment, so therefore people are ignoring those movies. And so, first thing I want to bring up here, I want to bring up this. Right here, this is from discussing film. Oh, Netflix, I love it. This is what really brought on the idea for this video, and then I've been seeing stuff all day about Furiosa and Garfield and everything, which we'll get into. But this says Netflix co-CEO Ted Sarandos argues that Barbie and Oppenheimer would have been just as big on Netflix. Sure it would. There's no reason to believe that the movie itself is better in any size of screen for all people. My son's an editor. He watched Lawrence of Arabia on his phone. Are you on what?
It's such a sadness that you think you've seen a film on your fucking telephone. Get real.
I couldn't have said that better myself if I was David Lynch. You do not watch Lawrence of Arabia, which is an actual movie, an actual film that is meant to be seen on a big screen on your damn phone. This is another thing that's like, this is where I say, like, the streaming is also causing death. If you really believe Netflix, Ted, whatever, if you really believe Barbie and Oppenheimer would have succeeded on Netflix like they did in the theaters, then you are delusional. All right. The whole point about going to see, like, the Barbenheimer thing came about because these were two movies, whether you loved them or hate them. I know a lot of people, on Barbie and everything like that, whether you loved them or hated them, they were designed for the theater going experience, right? And they were two original movies, not an existing franchise or a franchise that's been driven into the ground or DEI relegated or changed to fit modern audiences. These were original movies that just happened to hit when people wanted to see something different. Same goes, I think, in the same year with the Super Mario Brothers, which is, though, based off of a franchise, video game thing. But they were something different than Fast and the Furious Part 12 or the Indiana Jones in the Kingdom of the Dysentery or whatever, which came out later. I mean, there's a reason why, like, last year was the year of the flop buster, right? the summer of 2023. Was the year of the flopbuster, and I think this plays into like the death of cinema and everything. It's because you're giving these movies and you're like brushing off the corpse of these movies that we absolutely loved and changing them and just making horrible movies. The movies themselves. So you have to understand, to get people to go to the theaters, which Hollywood clearly doesn't care about theaters anymore. That's the whole thing of like sending a movie to digital, sending a movie to streaming 2 weeks after it's been in theaters, because they don't care anymore, because these movies aren't succeeding in the theaters. And then so they think they'll recoup money by going digital. And then like they put all their money into streaming that they can't look bad, because if they look bad, they admit failure, then they would have to admit failure. And they don't want to do that. And sometimes they admit it in a way where it doesn't look like they're admitting failure. And then in the end, they typically blame the fans. Nowadays, they blame the fans for underperforming things. But I want to take you look. I'm going to show you a slate of movies that came out in 1989. I show you this because they had an incredible slate of movies, and also 1989 is not always necessarily considered to be the best year for releases. But just take a look at this so-called not so best year of 1989 of releases. Check this out.
We're due to see Lethal Weapon 2, The Karate Kid 3, Star Trek 5.
Greetings, Captain.
Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Return of the Musketeers, and the 16th James Bond adventure, License to Kill.
Oh, rats.
The new Indiana Jones movie is called The Last Crusade, indicating no more sequels for this story. While at the other end of the spectrum, a sequel has been made to a movie hardly anybody saw in the first place, Eddie and the Cruisers. On the other hand, there are some serious contenders for hit movies this summer that have no particular precedent. Robin Williams plays a colorful and charismatic professor in Dead Poets Society.
Oh, Titus, bring your friend hither.
Dennis Quaid brings the rowdy rock and roller Jerry Lee Lewis to life in Great Balls of Fire. Michael J. Fox and Sean Penn bring their star power to a film set in Vietnam, Casualties of War. Sylvester Stallone faces life behind bars in Lockup. And Michael Douglas plays a New York City cop who gets caught in the Japanese underworld in the thriller Black Rain.
What is going on?
Well, comedy is coming on strong this summer. Monty Python's Terry Jones directs Eric the Viking, and his old pal John Cleese shows up for a small role. Steve Martin goes domestic in Ron Howard's Parenthood, the most impressive cast of the summer crop.
Doesn't anyone realize he's dead?
There's black comedy in Weekend at Bernie's, romantic comedy under the direction of Rob Reiner in When Harry Met Sally, Yahoo comedy with the unlikely Clint Eastwood in Pink Cadillac, and mafia comedy with Peter Falk and Emily Lloyd in Cookie.
I can't tell if you're really smart or retarded.
What's your name?
Billy.
Billy what?
Some newcomers to screen stardom will be testing their wings, including Weird Al Yankovic in UHF, the Wonder Years' Fred Savage in Little Monsters, and a fellow named Yahoo Serious in the title role of a film that's already wowed him in Australia, Young Einstein.
Love.
Spike Lee promises something provocative in his explosive story of race relations, Do the Right Thing. And the Disney studio promises something out of the ordinary in its fantasy comedy starring Rick Moranis, Honey, I've Shrunk the Kids.
What is it? Earthquake!
No way! Lawnmower!
Speaking of kids, they'll have plenty to keep them busy this summer with the reissue of Disney's classic Peter Pan. A new Disney adventure yarn starring Keith Coogan called Cheetah and Friends, a Japanese import about a cat and dog, The Adventures of Milo and Otis, and a brand new animated feature based on the beloved children's book Babar called, cleverly enough, Babar the Movie.
There is something down there. Something not us.
And when it comes to biggies, there are two that stand out. A spectacular underwater adventure called The Abyss from the director of Aliens and The Terminator, and of course the much-anticipated Batman, starring Michael Keaton as the Caped Crusader and Jack Nicholson as the Joker. And any summer that promises that can't be all bad.
Nice outfit.
Did you see some of the movies that came out in it? That is an amazing slate of movies because we don't get movies like that nowadays. There is something being lost with the art of cinema because the people running the studios nowadays don't really care about cinema. They don't. They just care. Like, yes, everything is made for money. Everything is made to make $1, everything. But it just seemed like things back in the day were different. It was, yes, they were made for money, but they were also made with an intent purpose of actually entertaining people. And, I also go back to the studios often thought that putting movies on VHS, video stores and stuff like that was going to hurt the theater going business, was going to hurt movie theaters. But in reality, it didn't. It actually helped theaters. It actually helped movies. It actually, that made it more of a pop cultural thing amongst us because you would see these movies. They would cut like movies like that or movies maybe you missed because there was such a slate of movies that were, released on top of each other. Sometimes you would miss movies in theaters, and because we had such a more variety of movies. And then like with the video store release, it would give those movies a second chance, which we talked about, and people would rent those. And see, nowadays, they're not allowing that time to breathe. They're not allowing time to movies to succeed. And plus they're giving movies that nobody really wants to watch. So I do, yes, I hate streaming. I'm not a fan of streaming, but there's a way to, since streaming is essentially the video store now, there's a way to do that where you can learn the lessons of what you learned from the video store that you thought would take monies from the theaters when streaming and all just, there's a way to learn the lesson, and I don't think Hollywood will ever learn this lesson. I think Hollywood is kind of getting what they deserve, and which brings me to the other things I've been saying about, because the movie Furiosa, the prequel to the Furiosa movie, came out, and also the new Garfield movie came out, and they underperformed. It was the worst number 1 and 2 weekend for Memorial Day weekend ever in like 30 years or something like that. Furiosa underperformed big time. I mean, majorly big time, and they can't understand why. They don't understand why Furiosa, and there's no judgment here on the channel about what you like, because I know people liked Mad Max Fury Road. I personally did not, because I don't feel like it's a Mad Max movie, and I feel like it was just a way to take Mad Max out of the movies, and that's why we got Furiosa. And Furiosa to me just doesn't look good. The Garfield movie didn't really look good either. But I see these, and they talk about how these movies underperform. Nobody wants to see them. The cinema is dead. It's ballooning budgets, it's streaming, it's digital, it's so forth, it's so forth. It's the fans' fault. It's all finger pointing, and instead of actually taking blame and seeing where and trying to fix what they've wronged. They flopped. They flopped basically. I mean, yes, they're number 1 and 2 movies. I think Furiosa ended up beating Garfield, but they were underperformed big time. And I mean, let's face it, nobody wanted to see a Mad Max movie without Mad Max. Who was actually clamoring for a Furiosa movie, let alone a prequel Furiosa movie? And which brings me to this I wanted to bring up, because I saw this on Twitter. This is my Twitter. Somebody named Dale tweeted out, exclusive. The numbers are in. Both Warner Brothers, Blade Runner, and Universal's The Thing are tanking at the box office this weekend. What have studios got to do to make audience support the big screen experience? Cinema is dying. And I quote tweeted it and said, I get the point being made, but do you really think that people will look back on Furiosa and Garfield as great classic movies? Plus, these 2 movies had stiff competitions against them, that being Blade Runner and Thing. Go look at the summer of 1982 movie releases compared to Furiosa opening up against Garfield. Exactly. You go look at back. There's a whole reason like the Nerd Summer of '82 is considered like one of the biggest summer blockbuster seasons of all time. There were so many awesome movies released in the summer of 1982. Yes, Blade Runner and The Thing were released in 1982, and they didn't do so well, but they've become on classics. I really don't think people will be looking back on Furiosa and Garfield as, as The Thing or Blade Runner. I really don't. Maybe in a small part of people will look back on Furiosa, because I know there was enough people that actually did like it, but the thing was, the masses didn't want to see it, and I don't think they're going to look back on as well as we do Blade Runner and The Thing. And you're trying to compare that to the Furiosa and Garfield of today, it's just not going to work, because like I said, I don't think anybody wanted a Furiosa movie. Nobody saw Fury Road and thought, you know what? I want to see more of that character without Mad Max. I mean, essentially, that was a Furiosa movie to begin with. And like I said, I'm sure people will love it. I'm sure some people will latch onto it and it will gain a little bit of a cult following. But I really don't think it will be looked back fondly on as Blade Runner and The Thing. I could be wrong on that one, but I definitely don't think people will look back on the new Garfield movie as like The Thing or Blade Runner. And I see this, and I keep it, it's much like how I talk about physical media here on the channel. I don't believe physical media is dead or dying. We're actually in a really good age of physical media right now. Us physical media collectors are being so spoiled, we don't even realize it, that we're actually starting to complain about physical media dying because we're being so spoiled with physical media, which I don't get that. I don't complain about that. But I see this as like people saying cinema is dying, cinema is dead. It's TikTok that's done it. It's YouTube that's done it. It's social media that's taken away. It's they're going directly to streaming, which I do believe that is a big problem, is taking a movie out of the theater 2 weeks, putting it on digital and streaming. But I see it as a problem, as is movies are no longer entertaining. People do not like new movies. They're just putting out movies that are content. That's what it's become. Art and entertainment has become content, not art and entertainment. They're just pushing these movies out. They know, hey, we need to make money. What franchise can we milk? Let's milk this franchise, and we'll spin it off into this. We'll make that. We'll do this, because they're scared to give original movies chances, and original movies that are given chances are essentially streaming movies. They put them out on streaming, and a lot of times those streaming movies are scripts that never really got developed the way they should have, like they did back in the day. And so that's why lackluster streaming movies are kind of, shit. They're going straight to these streaming services. And that's why I feel like independent cinema is something that's very important, because after talking to so many independent directors and stuff myself, I'm seeing that these independent directors are creating those movies that we're so fond of from like the 70s, 80s, and 90s in independent cinema, and they're being allowed to create so much more today than big budget studios, because all they care about is content and putting something out there and trying to make money. And I don't know how long it's going to take before Hollywood realizes this. I really don't think they're going to realize this. They will learn the wrong lessons from the failure of Furiosa. They will learn the wrong lessons from the failure of Garfield. They will continue to blame you, the fans, for these failures. They will continue to see that it's the theater's fault and turn their backs on the theaters. They will continue to see that streaming is where they sink all their money into, and desperately tries to need to make it successful. So they'll continue to sink all their money into a failing system that is losing millions of dollars a day, as the box office movies lose millions of dollars a day. You know what? I don't know how to get it through to them other than, just support what you love. Support the entertainment you love. Support independent cinema. If you feel like you can create something yourself, I see it. Like to go back to like people finding entertainment on YouTube, it's people on YouTube are creating entertainment that the studios aren't. And that's something that is causing them problems, and they don't know how to compete with that. But what are you guys' thoughts on all this? Do you guys think movies are dying, and do you think the theater is dying? What are your thoughts on this? Did you like Furiosa? Did you like Garfield? And that's okay if you did. It is okay. All opinions on that are welcome. If you liked it and you loved it and you think it's going to be big in the long run, that's cool. But let me know what your guys' thoughts are on all this in the comment section down below. And if you liked what you saw here, maybe consider hitting that like button or subscribing and hitting that bell for notifications. That would be awesome if I earn your guys' subscriptions, or possibly share the video out for everybody to see, or join and become a channel member, because that would help out my channel immensely. Thank you, and shout out to all my channel members. I appreciate each and every one of you guys. Thank you guys for being channel members here and for all of your support. And to everybody watching, whether you liked me, hated me, or liked this video, or hated this video, I thank you for sticking this long wherever you all are. Please have a great, safe, happy, healthy day, morning, afternoon, evening, and night. Always support physical media and the entertainment you love, because physical media is the superior format, and entertainment you love is uniquely you. And Godspeed.